Josh Hasten here, Land of Israel Network, at thelandofisrael.com. This is Israel Uncensored, recording on Sunday, December the 3rd, 2017, the 15th of Kislev, 5778. And we are going live on Facebook as well. Hope you're doing well in your part of the world. Get in touch with me during the week, Josh at thelandofisrael.com, on Facebook, Joshua Hasten, and on Twitter at Josh Hasten. And last week's show, we dedicated it towards understanding the situation in the Netiv Avot neighborhood of Elazar. And if you go on my Facebook page, you'll see that it was a really tough week in Elazar. It was a tough week for Netiv Avot. The carpentry shop, which was slated for demolition, was in fact demolished. And that was on Wednesday. And you can see all of the images and disturbing pictures. And honestly, I was there. I was involved in the event itself, and still a little bit shaken from the event, seeing Jews pulling other Jews out of their homes because of a ruling, an unjust ruling, I believe, by the Israeli Supreme Court. And I've already dedicated several shows to it, and unfortunately there's still 15 houses which are slated for demolition in the Netiv Avot neighborhood, and that deadline is March 2018, so I'm sure we're going to be talking about it again. But go to my Facebook page. You'll see, if you want to get a play-by-play or step-by-step of what happened on Wednesday in the Netiv Avot neighborhood, go to the YouTube video which was shot, in which I give a somewhat of a commentary about everything that happened there in Netiv Avot that day. Just a horrible scene, and we've seen it in Gush Katif, and all the way back in Yamit, actually, and in Amona, and in Ofra, and in and all these other places. We've seen it over and over again. So it's unfortunate that it happens, and we need some serious change here in the way the system works. And there are laws out there, the regulation law, which hopefully will remain in place, and other things. But the government of the state of Israel needs to step up and come up with a solution so that other homes, and especially in this case, those 15 homes, aren't destroyed. So go and check that out. I'm going to do a bunch of news. There's a ton of news here on a Sunday. Normally Sunday's a light day of news, but I'm going to get you caught up, everything going on here in Israel over the past several days. We'll start with the front page of today's Jerusalem Post. According to the headline, U.S. plan, ? Jerusalem as capital, even though the embassy will remain in Tel Aviv. According to this report, U.S. President Donald Trump is likely to announce this week the U.S. will recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, according to a senior administration official on Friday. So that would change decades of U.S. policy. Nevertheless, apparently the embassy, temporarily at least, will remain in Tel Aviv. That waiver, the president has another 2 days to sign. According to this report, he will sign that waiver, and the embassy will remain, unfortunately, in Tel Aviv. The Arabs, of course, are up in arms. Any move by the U.S. to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital would fuel extremism and violence, the Arab League Secretary General said on Saturday. He said, quote, "Today we say very, very clearly that taking such action is not justified, it will not serve peace or stability, but will fuel extremism and resort to violence." So let me get this straight. The U.S., if they decide to move the embassy to Jerusalem, there's going to be violence, according to the Arab League, and others, members of the PA, are also claiming there's going to be violence. Who's there going to be violence against? Are they going to blame Israel? Are they going to start attacking Israelis? I mean, this is a U.S. move. But I'm sure, and God forbid it should happen, but I'm sure that Israel will be blamed for actions. Oh, in this case, I mean, it may take another 6 months, but even if they say that Jerusalem is Israel's capital, that'll be an excuse for violence. We saw on the Temple Mount violence just several months ago, a blood libel. So here's another potential blood libel. And if there is violence, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the question is, who will they direct the violence towards? Americans, Israelis? I would bet Israelis, even though it's a U.S. policy, it's a U.S. move recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. We have Vice President Mike Pence scheduled to arrive in another week and a half or so here in Israel over Hanukkah. But they're threatening. the PA and the Arab League and everyone is threatening for what is a long overdue move. Number one, recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, since every country has the right to declare who their capital is or what their capital is. And number two, hopefully that embassy will eventually be moved. A delegation, according to Times of Israel, a delegation from the PA met Friday with U.S. presidential advisor Jared Kushner to warn the Trump administration. These guys are warning the Trump administration, really? They have the power. The Trump administration is really going to bow to these guys. That if the U.S. announces the relocation of the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, or if Trump makes remarks acknowledging Jerusalem as Israel's capital, this would mark the end of the peace process. So that's a good thing. If it's the end of the peace process, that would be a good thing. So let's bring that on. Let the PA threaten Donald Trump and see where that gets them. Okay? But, you know, the ball right now is in the court, clearly in the court of the President of the United States this week to see whether or not he will sign the waiver, will delay the move of the embassy, whether he will recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. The ball's in his court, and he should not back down to these threats from the Arab League, from the Palestinian Authority, or anybody else. But in Israel, we have to be vigilant because we get blamed for everything here, regardless of what the U.S. policy is. So let's be on alert. Let's stay vigilant here in Israel. Unfortunately, I believe it was on Friday, there was a jihadist attack here in Israel in the city of Arad. That's in southeastern Israel, and an IDF soldier was murdered. Initially, they weren't sure exactly the cause, and as of now, police are saying that this was a terror attack and there's a manhunt underway. But unfortunately, 19-year-old Yitzchak Kukia, a soldier from Tel Aviv, was murdered at a bus stop outside of, I believe, a mall in Arad on Friday. The funeral was held today in Tel Aviv. The soldier's family agreed, according to Israel National News, to donate his corneas. And just another horrible, horrible attack. Another Israeli murdered at the hands of these jihadist terrorists. Again, his funeral today. So that's tragic, tragic news. On Friday, it was reported, I think this incident happened on Thursday. This is a story, and we're hearing so many different versions and sides as to what exactly happened. Ynet today, the headline is this: settler who shot Palestinian suspected of causing death by negligence. So let me tell you what really happened, okay? You had a group of bar mitzvah-age kids who were going on a tiyul, on a hike, to celebrate one of the boys' bar mitzvah. They were ambushed by a group of Arabs. They were hiding in a cave because they were afraid for their lives. The Arabs were potentially going to lynch these children and the two adults who were accompanying them on a hike in Samaria. And after they threatened their lives, they threw rocks. These Arabs threw rocks at the kids and threatened their lives. After all this was happening, one of the guards, who actually was injured himself, fired and killed one of the Arabs who were threatening their lives. Now, if you would listen to groups such as so-called Rabbis for Human Rights and other groups, they took testimony from the Arabs, who were clearly lying in this case, and saying that these so-called settlers, unprovoked, entered a field and randomly shot at Arabs who were working the field. Now, does that make any sense to anybody out there? You have a group of bar mitzvah-age kids on a hike, and you're turning that story into wild settlers go on a rampage shooting and attacking the Arabs. If you see the videos, these are little kids, 13-year-old kids, who were afraid for their lives. The Arabs threatened that they were going to murder them. They robbed them. They sprayed them with pepper spray. And it's crazy. It's just simply crazy that certain organizations, and let's see if they revamp their story once the truth comes out. Initially, the IDF said 100% that they were backing those who shot the Arab and killed the Arab because it was life or death. And now somehow you have the headline today, and this I just don't understand, that this was negligence. Now, as somebody whose life has been threatened personally, who had to use his weapon, as I did on October 7, 2015, to save my own life as a group of 30 Arabs tried to run and attack my car on the road with bricks and cement blocks. and I fired one round. I didn't hurt anybody. I shot in the air, and that bullet saved my life. And I can't imagine what these guys, or I can't imagine rather, what happened in this situation and what these young children with their two guards went through. But I don't understand at this point how there's even talk of negligence on the part of those who were protecting these children. I mean, the truth will come out eventually, but it looks like the official authorities, whoever's involved in the investigation, are now changing their tune a little bit after the IDF clearly said after this event happened this was a life or death situation, and the guards had no choice. The two parents who were there had no choice but to fire. And unfortunately, when you throw rocks, there is a chance you're going to get shot and killed. It's a sad reality, but a rock is a weapon, and rocks can kill. We've seen it time and time again. Jews being murdered with rocks being the weapon of choice. And in this case, hopefully the truth will come to light, and the guards, who I believe did what they had to do after reading different reports on this issue, hopefully the guards will be exonerated, and it will be proven that this was a life or death situation, and they were defending a group of kids who just wanted to hike in celebration of a bar mitzvah, and now it's front page headlines all over the world, of course, making the settler people look out to be the bad guys in this situation. Another report here, another news item. We're moving ahead here. And by the way, if you're just joining us, this is Israel Uncensored, Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. My name is Josh Hasten. It is Sunday, December 3rd, 2017. We're recording for tomorrow's program. So if anything changes between tonight when I'm recording and tomorrow's show, just know this is a recorded show a day in advance in case there is any breaking news, and hopefully that won't happen. But don't forget, also on Facebook, Joshua Hasten. We're broadcasting now on Facebook Live. Thanks for joining me. And on Twitter at Josh Hasten. That is my Twitter handle. The other day, and I get these updates on my phone, as many people also do around the world, and this has been going on since the year 2000. Not the application, but the fact that our neighbors in Gaza fire rockets at Israelis, whether you're talking about military targets or civilian population centers. But my phone went off like crazy the other day that rockets were incoming from Gaza. Initially, just a few minutes afterwards, the report came through that it was a false alarm, and I think this happens too much. I really believe that there are so few false alarms. In other words, when the Arabs, jihadists in Gaza, when they fire rockets, sometimes they land short. They land in Gaza, and then I believe our authorities, unfortunately, say it was a false alarm. Maybe there's a false alarm here or there, but as was the case the other day when immediately the authorities jumped and said it was a false alarm. In this case, according to this report by, I think this is Ynet, there were actually 12 mortar shells fired at an IDF position near the Gaza border. Islamic Jihad then took credit for it, and Israel retaliated against Hamas in Gaza because Israel and the IDF view Hamas as responsible for anything that comes out of Gaza. Any rockets fired, missiles fired, in this case mortar shells fired at the people of Israel or at Israeli military targets. From what I understand, this was a military post where construction was going on, the new underground system to detect tunnels. So Islamic Jihad fires. Our officials unfortunately try to downplay it. Then after the fact, admit 12 mortar shells fired. Israel retaliates. But, again, maybe it's just a way to keep the public at large calm, but it happens so many times that these rockets fall in open areas or they fall short, and then all of a sudden we're told it was a false alarm. I'm not saying every time, and certainly there are false alarms from time to time, but I believe that it's just a means of trying to calm the population. But every time that rocket alarm goes off, and I worked down in Sderot for 3 years, from 2007 to 2009. And I can tell you, every single time that alarm goes off, the damage it does to the children, especially down there, who are afraid for their lives, who have 15 seconds, and in communities right on the border, the kibbutzim and the moshavim, right along the border, even less time they have to run for their lives. Even if it falls in an open field, even if it's a false alarm, even if nobody's hurt, it is traumatic, and each and every rocket and each and every alarm does damage. So we'll see how the situation goes in the south, if it escalates, or this was a one-time thing. Some are saying Islamic Jihad was retaliating for the fact that the IDF destroyed tunnels, or that one tunnel, rather, several weeks ago, in which numerous senior terrorists, jihadists were killed as the tunnel collapsed on them. Sorry about that. When you get a phone call, I just learned if you get a phone call in the middle of Facebook Live, then it gets interrupted. But we're still going ahead here on the Land of Israel Network and on Facebook. Here's another crazy story. This is front page of today's Jerusalem Post. Israel pulls out of Dead Sea Scrolls exhibit in Germany. So this is insane. All right, this is complete insanity. I can believe it because I can believe anything these days. Israel has pulled out, according to the J Post and with the JTA, out of a planned exhibit of the Dead Sea Scrolls in Frankfurt, Germany, because the German government, would not guarantee that the scrolls, if they were to be claimed by the Palestinians or Jordanians, would be returned to Israel. That's unbelievable. So if Israel decides to export or temporarily display the Dead Sea Scrolls in the country of Germany, of all countries, Germany will not guarantee that Israel's going to get the scrolls back. Why? Because they were found in Qumran, which is considered part of what they call the West Bank, or Judea and Samaria, and therefore they won't guarantee that the Dead Sea Scrolls will be returned to Israel. You know, the Dead Sea Scrolls, which we see at the Israel Museum, which are housed in Jerusalem. Because it's preposterous. They will not guarantee that if Israel decides to exhibit the Dead Sea Scrolls in Germany, that they will return the Dead Sea Scrolls at the end of the exhibit to Israel. So Israel said, forget this. We are not going to send you parts of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Again, the first scrolls discovered in 1946 by Bedouin in Judea and Samaria. And this is these are historical biblical documents, but they can't even guarantee, the German government can't guarantee the safety of the Dead Sea Scrolls and their return to the state of Israel. So Israel decided, forget it, we're going to pull out of this exhibit. The Dead Sea Scrolls will stay here, and I say good riddance. It's just it's a preposterous, insane story, but this is our reality, and this is front page news, even here today. Let's see how we're doing on time. There are a few other stories that I wanted to cover here on the show today. Another story here by Israel National News. We'll just touch on it. The headline is, Supreme Court endangers Israel's democracy. There was a demonstration, 200 residents of southern Tel Aviv, together with the Im Tirtzu movement and supporters from all over the country, protesting Saturday night opposite the northern Tel Aviv home of Supreme Court Chief Justice Esther Hayut, insisting that the authorities maintain law and order in southern Tel Aviv. And again, this is issues have been going on for years. They're protesting specifically the Supreme Court, who ruled in August that infiltrators may only be deported to a third country if they agree to leave, and they may not be imprisoned for refusing to leave the country. So you have these protesters who had enough of the situation in southern Tel Aviv with the crime, and those who were able to cross over the border from Egypt. Now it's nearly impossible because we built a large fence down there. But Im Tirtzu CEO Matan Peleg says, it seems the Supreme Court has lost control of itself, has lost its professional honesty, its activist ruling are political, and the first ones to suffer are the residents of southern Tel Aviv because of the situation down there. Again, the story, I guess it's been out of the headlines for a while, but the crime and the drugs and everything else causing chaos in that southern Tel Aviv neighborhood. But the Supreme Court basically saying that the infiltrators can only be deported to that third country if they agree, and they cannot be imprisoned, even if there's chaos, even if the residents down there are suffering. According to the report, these illegal infiltrators, many of whom receive national insurance benefits, which Israelis have taken off their salaries, have caused a significant rise in crime, making life in southern Tel Aviv unbearable for the residents. And the situation remains, unfortunately, disturbing down there in southern Tel Aviv. But we have great organizations like Im Tirtzu who are fighting against the situation. Shefi Paz, who's a known activist down in that area, to try to keep that neighborhood safe. She was also involved in last night's demonstration. Let's finish off today with some positive news, some good news here. Again, all the haters out there, all the BDS, anti-Israel folk, the Roger Waters of the world out there who can't bear to see artists coming and performing here in the Jewish state. Well, this is another BDS fail. Ringo Starr coming to Israel, the drummer of the Beatles, Ringo Starr coming to Israel. From what I understand here in the Jerusalem Post, the only two Beatles, 2 out of 4 made it to Israel in their lifetime. Paul McCartney was here. He performed, and now Ringo Starr. It says here that he is going to be making his debut in the Jewish state in Tel Aviv in the Menorah Miftachim Arena on June 23rd and June 24th. The second and final former member of the Beatles to perform in Israel. So you can take that, BDS, and let's go out and get our tickets to see Ringo Starr on the 23rd or the 24th of June in Tel Aviv. Love finishing the show with some good positive news, so you take that, BDS haters out there. My name is Josh Hasten. Thanks for joining us here on Israel Uncensored, Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. I appreciate everyone out there who's watching. We are live on Facebook as well. I haven't done this in a long time, so thanks for tuning into the show. Get in touch with me during the week. I appreciate each and every email. It's Josh at thelandofisrael.com. On Facebook, it's Joshua Hasten, and on Twitter, at Josh Hasten. Big shout out to my main man, Binyamin Bresky, who does all the work behind the scenes, the engineering work of all the shows here on the Land of Israel Network. Without him, we just would not have these programs. We would not have any sound. So signing off for December the 3rd, 2017, the 15th of Kislev, a big, beautiful moon here in Jerusalem, 5778. Most importantly, between now and when we speak again next week, let everyone out there be safe. So shalom, shalom from Jerusalem. All the best. And we are turning off the Facebook Live. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.